So these are the Drop THX Panda wireless headphones. Their claim to fame is that these are a pair of wireless audiophile headphones that feature both Phase Correct Planar ribbon drivers and a zero distortion THX Triple A amplifier. The end result is that these headphones don't understand the meaning of distortion. They have very neutral bass and extremely crisp vocals. So these headphones will definitely make one group of people very happy and could disappoint another group. So for that reason, I am going to have to say the Pandas are a pair of very niche headphones.
Now, first off, there's price. The Pandas retail for $400, and if you're looking for a pair of full-featured headphones with active noise cancellation and ambient mode, and maybe even an adjustable EQ, then look at something else because the Pandas don't have any of that. Their main priority is sound. But nonetheless, we're still going to compare these headphones to mainstream options where it applies. Now, the Pandas come included with a hard shell case. Now, it's definitely not my favorite because this thing is huge. It's bigger than the Surface headphones case and it dwarfs both the Sony 1000XM4s and Bose NC700s case. So, the Pandas wouldn't be my first choice for commuting. However, at least this case isn't as large as the Shure Aonic 50s case, and I'd rather have some kind of a case rather than the AirPod Max Magic Bra. But now let's talk about the headphones themselves. Personally for me, the build quality of the Pandas is very meh. Now these headphones have a mostly plastic body construction and there's nothing wrong with that, but this build just doesn't compete with more mainstream options. Now the ear cups are semi-smooth and semi-textured and this hinge swivels with very little resistance. We're all good here. But when it comes to the headband, that's a whole other story. Now this headband takes a lot of effort to extend and retract, and the sound this headband makes isn't the greatest. Now up top we've got silicone with very little padding, which ultimately does adversely affect comfort. But right now I just want to focus on the flexibility of this headband. This thing likes to twist a lot. Now I wouldn't say that that's a bad thing, but I just want to be cautious because maybe there could be a headband cracking issue like we saw with the earlier Sony 1000XM4. Now, I'm not saying that this will happen, but it is something I would look out for. And finally, there's the leatherette on these headphones. It's decent, but it definitely doesn't feel as good as the leatherette you'll find on either the Bose NC700 or Surface headphones, and it certainly doesn't feel as good as the sheepskin leather you'll find on the Momentum 3s. But now let's talk about comfort. Foremost, we're going to have to address the Panda's weight because it is something that I recently harped on with the AirPod Max. Now, the Pandas weigh in at 378 grams, which is a lot for a pair of wireless headphones. Now, the AirPod Max are still king, weighing in at 385 grams, but nonetheless, the Pandas are a pair of very heavy headphones that you won't forget that you have on. You'll constantly notice them if you're sitting still at your desk working, or if you're in your bed watching a movie, and you'll really notice these headphones swinging around when you're walking around with them on. And for comparison's sake, all of these other more mainstream options are considerably lighter than the Pandas. The Momentum 3s weigh in at 305 grams, which is still a little on the heftier side, but they're way more manageable than the Pandas and AirPod Max. Then there's the Bose NC700s, which weigh in at 264 grams, and the Sony 1000XM4s, which weigh in at 254 grams, meaning these headphones are very easy to forget that you have on, and you really don't notice them when you're walking around with them on. But if you're someone that's looking for maximum comfort, then you might want to look into either the Bose QC35s, which weigh in at 240 grams, or the Sennheiser PXC552s, which weigh in at 227 grams. But weight aside, the Pandas aren't my favorite fitting headphones for two main reasons. First off, there's clamping force. The Pandas fit very tight. They actually have more clamping force than the AirPod Max. Now, I've tried stretching these headphones out and leaving them stretched out overnight, but no luck. So I am going to have to say that these headphones are not big head approved. But another problem that I have with the fit of these headphones is their lack of padding underneath their headband. Like I mentioned earlier, this headband has very little padding, and combined with these headphones' weight and clamping force, I've noticed that this headband likes to create a hot spot on the top of your head fairly quickly. At like the 20-minute mark, you'll start to feel some discomfort, and at like the 40-minute mark, I gotta take these headphones off and take a break. So weight, clamping force, and very minimal padding underneath their headband are the main reasons why I'm not a fan of the Panda's comfort. But when it comes to the earpads, they're decent. Now, the Panda's earpads are nowhere near as spacious as either the Bose NC700's earpads or the Sennheiser PXE552's earpads. So if you've got large ears or ears that stick out a lot, you'll definitely still want to go with either one of those. But the Panda's earpads are very similar to the Sony 1000XM4's and Momentum 3's earpads in diameter. But they are a little more shallow, because the Pandas do press down on my ears just a little bit, whereas these other two don't. So overall, when it comes to build quality, the Pandas certainly get the job done, but the word premium does not come to mind. And when it comes to fit, I'm gonna have to say that these are my least favorite fitting headphones here because of their weight, clamping force, and minimal headband. I actually prefer the AirPod Max comfort over the Pandas simply because the AirPod Max canopy doesn't create a hotspot like the Pandas do.
But now let's talk about tech specs. The Pandas charge via a USB-C port as they should in 2021, and they have an advertised battery life of 30 hours, which is decent for a pair of wireless headphones that don't have active noise cancellation. And they also have decent fast charging, where if you plug them in for 10 minutes from a dead battery, they're going to get you 3 hours of playback time. Now, when it comes to Bluetooth connectivity, the Pandas are using Bluetooth 5.0, but more importantly, they can be simultaneously connected to two devices at the same time, so you can easily hot swap from one device to another, which could be a big deal for any power users out there. However, I do gotta point out that it does take these headphones a few seconds to go from playing audio from one source to another sometimes. So for example, if I'm playing music on my phone and then I start watching a video on my computer, in order for the Pandas to actually switch over, first you gotta pause your audio on your phone, and then you gotta start your audio on your computer, and then you gotta wait a few seconds for the Pandas to actually switch over. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but I do want to point it out for any power user out there that might be looking for a as seamless as possible setup. Because with all of these other headphones, they do switch between their audio sources much quicker. But more importantly, when it comes to watching movies or videos on your phone, these headphones have zero latency across the board, whether you're using an iPhone or an Android device, which is always great. And when it comes to audio codecs, the Pandas give you options. Now, obviously, they have SBC and AAC. That's standard. But the Pandas also have support for aptX, aptX HD, and they even have aptX Adaptive. And on top of all of that aptX, the Pandas also have support for Sony's LDAC. But if you want to, you can always just use a wired connection with these headphones because they have an easy to reach 3.5mm audio jack. And would you look at that, they even come included with an audio cable. But you can always use the USB-C port on these headphones as a wired connection as well, a feature that isn't super common just yet. And personally, I really like that Drop also includes a 4-foot thin and flexible USB-C to USB-C cable.
But now let's talk about listening to music with these headphones. For starters, if you're someone that likes to physically feel their music, and if you want the bass to rattle your head, then the Pandas aren't for you. Now, the bass on these headphones does resonate a great deal and sounds great, but it does take a lot of bass to get them there. So if you're someone that wants to physically feel their bass, then you'll definitely want to go with the Sony 1000XM4s, or maybe even the AirPod Max. Now, with that out of the way, the first thing I gotta point out about the Pandas is that these headphones get extremely loud. The Pandas get significantly louder than the AirPod Max, and overall, I can't use them anywhere past 85% volume. I feel that anything after that is just gonna cause hearing damage. Now, soundstage and instrument separation wise, the Pandas easily sound more open than both the Sonys and Bose. I want to say the Pandas sound as open as the AirPod Max, but they don't sound as open as the Momentum 3s. Now, the main reason why I want to say the Pandas don't sound as open as the Momentum 3s is because the mids and highs on the Pandas are just a little too raised, very similar to the AirPod Max. So, just like with the AirPod Max, vocalists are front and center here, but on rare occasion, they can get a little ear piercing. But even still, since the vocals are getting the most exposure here, sometimes they can outshine the instrumentals. But nonetheless, the mids on the Pandas are phenomenal. Now, when it comes to the bass, like I've mentioned a few times already, the Pandas have a very neutral bass, and for the most part, the bass on these headphones isn't going to physically rattle your head all that much. The bass on these headphones is mostly on the audible side, similar to what you would find on the Bose NC700 or Bowers & Wilkins PX7. Now, the bass on the Pandas is tighter and resonates much deeper and cleaner than the bass on the Bose NC700, but it doesn't hit as hard as the bass on the PX7s. So with all that being said, the easiest way for me to describe the Drop Panda sound is by saying that they sound like the AirPod Max, but without as much physicality in their bass, which could be a good thing for some people. Now, the Pandas sound great, and they sound way more open than the Bose NC700 and Sony 1000XM4s. But I am going to have to say that the Pandas are better suited for people who like a more vocals-focused, brighter EQ. Because if you're someone that likes a more neutral EQ, then I feel you might think these sound a little too bright. And personally for me, I'm still going to have to say that I still prefer the Momentum 3s over the Pandas. Unlike the Pandas and AirPod Max, the Momentum 3s don't put as much of an emphasis on the vocals, so they do sound a little more open, and the instrumentals don't get outshined by the vocalist. And they do have more resonating and physical bass than both the Pandas and AirPod Max. Now, I'm someone that appreciates clarity and balance in my music, and the Pandas have clarity in spades, but I still want to physically feel my music.
But finally, here's the microphone test. It's not good. Honestly, I haven't heard a microphone this bad in a while. There's this constant background hissing noise, and keep in mind, I'm currently in a quiet room, and when it comes to my voice, it does sound rather robotic. So personally, I just wouldn't take phone calls with these headphones. And for comparison's sake, all of these other headphones have better sounding microphones. Now, the Sonys might not sound the best, but they do sound better than the Drop Panda. The Momentum 3s also sound pretty good, but this microphone doesn't do all that much to block out ambient noise. But if you do plan on taking lots and lots of phone calls, then you might want to go with either the AirPod Max or the Bose NC700s. Now, both of these headphones have great sounding microphones for phone calls. But I am very hard pressed to declare one the overall winner because both of these headphones take very different approaches to blocking out ambient noise. Now, if you want to compare the two, you can always watch my AirPod Max versus Bose headphones video. But what I am trying to get at here is that the microphone on the Drop Panda is not great, either for 2021 or their price.
So, with all that being said, the Drop Pandas are a pair of very niche wireless headphones for somebody that likes a vocals-focused, brighter sound signature. Now, if you're an audiophile, the Pandas give you a lot of options for wireless headphones. You've got support for multiple flavors of aptX, and you've even got LDAC. You can either use the 3.5mm audio jack or USB-C put on these headphones if you want to use a wired connection, something that Apple would look down on you for. Now, if you're that niche customer and this list of features intrigues you, by all means, the Drop Pandas are a solid pickup. But personally, I think the Pandas have a lot of room for improvement. First of which is their comfort. For me, the Pandas are way too heavy to consider as daily drivers because you never forget that you have these headphones on, and they're super noticeable when you're walking around with them on. They're also not Bigot approved because these things have a lot of clamping force, and I really wish their headband had more padding. Overall, I'm a fan of the tech packed inside these headphones, but I think I'm going to hold off for the Drop Panda 2s. If you made it this far, I guess you enjoyed the video, so hit that like button and get subscribed. It helps out more than you realize. If you want to pick any of the products up mentioned in this video, those will be linked in the description down below, and you can also support the channel by checking out the merch store. But other than that, I'll catch you next time.